Beautiful. Here we have you're playing Thompson with a P and you're playing Thompson without a P. And I don't know whether there was a sit-down moment thinking, how do we sort out the differences here, or are there differences between our characters?
3 months.
3 months of it.
Back meetings, back and forth.
Before 3 days of shooting. No, it was a very arbitrary decision who was who, because we decided, since my name was Pegg, I'd take the P. I'd take the P.
But I was
delicious.
But I was going to say, as I watched it, it was your accents are completely different. It was hard to sort of recognise you guys in there. I don't know whether there was a point where you said, how much Frost and Pegg magic comic duo stuff do we bring to this? Or was it a case of, I want to make sure that what's on the script goes up on the screen?
From my point of view, and I speak for Simon too, our hands were tied really, because it was about Hergé and it was about the Thompson Twins. It wasn't about us necessarily, so that was our starting point. And then it was a question of what Stephen wanted from us. So that kind of, they were our guidelines for the characters.
The idea really is that also Thompson and Thompson are almost like two sides of the same personality, and are constantly at war, constantly trying to outdo each other and one-up each other, but are almost indistinguishable in both appearance and behaviour. So, we drew on a trick we used to play on our families quite often, which was to take each other's phone calls, because we actually have a similar vocal.
On the phone, anyway.
On the phones, yeah. We found we could dupe family members into thinking that one was the other. And
or
so
he'd pass the phone
in the
midway of a conversation, and
Nick would just going, yep. But that's kind of how we played the Thompson.
I know that Hollywood has a reputation for taking sacred cows and making hamburgers out of it, and I don't know whether there was any fear here that this might be a great big $140 million insult to Hergé, whether there was always the belief that this is going to work because it's Spielberg and it's Jackson and it's hooray.
From sort of cynical kind of pessimistic people, probably. I think the key thing is that Stephen met Hergé before he died, went to the family and spoke at great length about making Tintin as a film almost 30 years ago, and has held on to it, waiting for the right time to make the film. And I think it was Hergé's wish that it be Stephen, and Peter came to him with the idea of doing it as a performance capture, which would enable him to put Hergé's aesthetic on the screen and do the live action. It's a cake and eat it scenario with that technology. And
we had Hergé people on set as well.
Yeah, we had Hergé's estate on the set all the time.
Fanny the Widow, I think, is the main.
Fanny, yeah.
Right.
And we had right around the volume, which is the area where you can capture performance. We had Hergé's drawings the whole time, so we always had the inspiration of the original look, even though we weren't dealing at that point with the look. That was all going to be down to the animators.
I think Kathy Kennedy, we did a Q&A together yesterday, and she was kind of asked the question about them watering down, Haddock's drinking and stuff, and she said that's not Tintin, and I think for Hollywood today it's quite a brave thing to do, I think, and it's the only way it could have been done, really.
There would have been studio people, I guarantee it, saying, does he have to drink?
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to Stephen and Kathy and Peter's commitment to the story that they said, yes, he does.
And thankfully Sparrow kind of probably helped them a little bit in their argument if they had to say, well, if Captain Jack Sparrow can be a drunk,
right.
Yeah. I was thinking too, certainly for people in Ireland, when you think of performance capture, well, there's some good, Avatar and the Jackson stuff with Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Lord of the Rings, but on the flip side, the Zemeckis films, especially with Polar Express and Beowulf and Christmas Carol, these look a little bit shit, is an old reference we make in Ireland. Was there a worry there that your characters would work, that these that this look wouldn't be, that sort of George A. Romero zombie look that you might get sometimes?
I think it's peculiar because nobody ever said that about Snow White, that their eyes are a bit dead, and that was the trouble is performance capture threatens almost total reality, and if it doesn't get there, people are disappointed. Why should it get there? I think one of the nice things about Tintin is that it still remains a stylized piece of work, in that the faces are not really possible human. They're still those faces that Hergé drew, which were caricatures, but they have a lifelike quality to them. The eyes are the key. There is a thing in capturing the life in the eyes of something, but the fact is they are not real. They are animated characters created by absolutely brilliant technicians and artists at Weta. To say even like Beowulf or even Polar Express, which was the first sort of iteration of that technology, to call it shit is just really, really mean-spirited.
But I think in the cases of the Zemeckis films, somewhat accurate.
They're not. They're
rough.
they're getting there. You know, you got to give. You can't arrive with this technology and it'd be brilliant.
I kind of agree with you, but I'll also disagree and say that without that, you wouldn't have this. You know, it's a process.
I would intone a phrase oft used by today's youth, which is "allow it."
Oh,
okay. I allow it, but I don't like it. I'm thinking from Space to Shaun of the Dead, right through Hot Fuzz and Paul, and much of your work. There's always been a love of sci-fi and pop culture, and to be in a position where you're now working with a man responsible for a huge amount of that sci-fi and pop culture, I don't know whether you still feel at this stage feel like cuckoos in the nest, or whether you think this is great. This is the world I belong in now. This is where I work.
Both, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think being on that set, and it was tough. You know, it was a hard shoot because that's Steven Spielberg there directing me, and there's Peter Jackson on that screen, and Kathy Kennedy, and there's James Bond. You know, you have to be on your game. You have to bring
Clint Eastwood's having a cigar.
Here's Ron Howard coming to say hi. What? You know,
the irony is, I think the irony is not lost on us, but it's not like we go in there feeling like we shouldn't be there. We've worked very hard to get there. So to be there's a nice vindication of the work we've done. But yeah, you know, to work with those people is a privilege for us, and we don't take it lightly by any stretch. You know, we love it and feel very lucky.
I've got to wrap up very quickly. The fact that you've made, I think, 60 films is on your list on IMDb, and you've got 29, and you've made a lot of films, and many of them have been wonderful. Some of them haven't quite worked. Do you ever kind of step back and think, I wonder what Tim Beasley and Mike Watt would make of these films, whether they would be kind of instantly saying, yeah, that worked and that didn't work? Can you guys do the same thing? Can you say, yeah, I can see how that was, you know, hit the mark and that didn't quite hit the mark?
I think we're totally aware of where our back catalogue succeeds and doesn't succeed as well. But
it's you know, when your first film you ever done was Shaun of the Dead, it sets a high benchmark. You know, it's
we didn't realise it at the time, but
no, but
so the advice to young filmmakers: don't make a great film at the very start. Work your way up.
No, I think just make the film you want to make always. You know, and the trouble is where things that I look back at films I've done, the ones that have done better than others, they tend to be the ones that have done better have been the ones that have been made by the least people. The more people get involved in something, the more thinned out it becomes, the less of a character it has by itself. And I think, you know, do it yourself. DIY is my advice.
Sweet. I'll be giving the friendly finger. Nice to talk to you, man.
Oh man,
Glad it was a friendly one.